With a yo-ho-ho, it's Taylor the Toaster, and for today's video I want to do something fairly simple. I've told the story on my channel before of exactly how I got into Inazuma 11, but I want to use this one to properly go into it, maybe even have a review of a review, you could say. I want to properly tell the story of how exactly I got into Inazuma 11 in the first place, because most people just saw the show on TV or found the show on the internet and watched that. Not that many people got into it via the games, from my experience, and then even less will have gotten into it in exactly this fashion, but it's all thanks to the official Nintendo magazine for me. I used to read this every single month when I was younger. I was a proper subscriber. They'd turn up at my door every day. Well, not every day, every month. And then this is the one that has a full review of Inazuma 11 in it. So it's the second time that Inazuma got in the magazine. The first time was a preview like a couple months earlier, but it was like several months earlier, so I'd completely forgotten about it by the time the full review came out. Indeed, I wasn't even at home when this magazine arrived. I was on holiday with my dad, walking the dog in Suffolk or somewhere like that. My mum just gave me a ring to say, by the way, the official Nintendo magazine's arrived. And I said, oh, cool, what's on the front cover? And she just goes, Inazuma 11? and it all went from there, basically. I thought, oh, wait, is that the football one that looked like Mario Tennis Power Tour? Because that was my favourite game of all time. And my Nintendo magazine loved it as well, because Mario was barely in it. It was just anime-style NPCs playing tennis. And I thought, what if we do that again, but with football? It's very, aggressively Japanese branding on it, which I never really got. I guess Inazuma 11 is quite a Japanese title, but it's like the new Japanese sensation you need to play. All of these games are Japanese too. Every Nintendo game is Japanese, and what's with the pink? This isn't part of the game's colors at all. But however relevant it is, it got my attention. And even before we get to the actual review itself, the magazine is just filled with Inazuma everywhere, which as a long-time fan is really fun to look back on. There it says, from level 5, the makers of Layton comes Inazuma 11, and that's all I really needed to know. I didn't even play the Layton games growing up, but my family did, so I knew that I respected it. And for them to make a sports RPG, well, that's just perfect. It's the best DSi game you've never heard of. There's not many actual DSi games, but I mean, it is great to see our favourite game getting such media attention. But when you look at what reviews were actually available for this month, you can see their hand was very much forced. After Inazuma 11, we've got Dual Pen Sports, Let's Golf 3D, Xevious, a £5 eShop game. There's plenty in the previews, but in terms of game releases, this was a slow month. And with every other Inazuma game that came out, there was always at least some kind of blockbuster that month. But Inazuma just happened to get a month to itself, so they gave it proper attention. Even Mark and Jude's just hanging about here in the staff introduction pages. Yeah, they didn't have much choice but to make Inazuma the major focus, but they did, and they genuinely seem to like it. So I say I'm going to be reviewing the review, you could say, this being the signature bit. Imagine if Gary Lineker popped up in Dragon Quest. That's what you've got right here. It's true and it's funny, and I was hooked from that point on. Jumpers for goalposts. Yeah, the month ahead. This is showing Nintendo's release schedule. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles, that's a pretty good game, but it's no Inazuma 11 if you ask me. And yeah, it's really the only noteworthy thing coming up here. But it would obviously continue to dominate my gaming for the rest of my life. This is the last little mention before the actual review itself. Just the online play focus has a specific bit about the new player downloads with Celia. So that's how I got Chops Denton in my very first playthrough of Inazuma 1. I downloaded him from Wi-Fi connection, and he became one of my favourite players. after that. Add a little quip to go with it, because magazines are meant to be funny. So we'll skip ahead and I'll kind of read along with the actual review itself. I'd probably committed to buying the game before I even read the review, but knowing that it also got a good score. There's The World Ends With You getting a shout out. I know I've got some fans of that in the comments. Skyward Sword, I'm definitely a fan of that one too. That would get its chance a little bit later. But come on, I will find it. I'm nearly there. Watch me. Pokemon Rumble Blast. That was crap. Really, really didn't like it. Come on, nearly there. I'm going to go too far. Who's on the usual suspects then? Go on, is that a Mark Evans? Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so. But Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door getting into a modern official Nintendo product, that's something we like to see. Yeah, I suppose that's worth pointing out, really. This is an official Nintendo magazine, so you'd expect some level of bias, but it wasn't always that bad. Like Mario Party 8 got a 69%, which wasn't very good. They were generally very favourable towards Nintendo published games, and Inazuma will have been no exception. But they still justified everything quite well. Like everything that got a good review in these magazines that I then went out and bought, I did genuinely love. And they, like many reviewers, hated Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, so that's how you know they're legit, I guess. But here we just get the full-on blocky blue for their Game of the Month. Inazuma 11 offers a dizzying amount of strategy to sink your teeth into. So let's just have a little read. Before you're allowed to step out onto Inazuma's pea green turf, you must read a warning from the game's maker. Ah, yes. This. I definitely heeded that advice, didn't I? The football moves represented in this unique soccer JRPG mashup are, it points out in the most solemn text imaginable, entirely fictional and should not be attempted in real life lest you do yourself or those around you an injury. Yes, those around me were Tom, Charlie and Alex, and I was the one putting myself at risk, but I have definitely done that throughout my life. Maybe not to that level of danger before, but it's a sensible health and safety one, and after all, Nintendo wouldn't want kids attempting to pull off the God Hand. That one's doable. You can definitely do a God Hand in real life. It's just all of the actual shooting moves that might do you some damage. No, they'd probably be very happy about the youngsters trying to replicate the fire tornado. Yes, that's the one that would take you out. We've tried. Doesn't tend to get very far, but it sees him leap into the air, spin around so fast that his legs burst into flames before landing a kick that transforms the ball into a fiery comet. That's the most descriptive fire tornado I've ever heard. And we mustn't forget the phantom shot. That's how you know Inazuma 1 is the only game that exists at this point in time. You mustn't forget the phantom shot, the most famous move in Inazuma history, because we're before the days of having I Am the Almighty and Easy Breezy and Grand Fire and all of that. Which sees the player power up for a strike so powerful that the ball splits into multiple purple orbs, as if breaking into its constituent atoms, streaking past the goalkeeper before re-assimilating in the back of the net. Doesn't that make Phantom Shot sound so cool, when it's actually just one of the most forgotten moves in existence? Well, not anymore. We stand Phantom Shot. I shouldn't hit the paper so loudly. I'm only using my phone camera microphone for this one. I know this is a game in which players improve their kick ability by repeatedly booting a tree stump with their bare shins. Yes, I've done that as well. It was while I was looking after a group of like 20-ish school kids on a summer camp in America, actually, and then I cut my leg open on a tree stump, and there wasn't very much I could do with that. I just had to hold that and cope and bleed while I waited for any other member of staff to turn up. Anyway, that was quite unpleasant. So let's have a look at some images up here. Heat tackles should always be part of Axel's level up moveset. Mentioning type elements, recruitability, Mr. Firewell. They mention that latent characters can make a cameo and be recruited. I don't know if that's true, actually, about recruitment for the first game, but I certainly believed it. But there are no latent characters in this screenshot. But if it makes people buy the game, then that's all I care, really. Experience points, and wearing certain clothing attracts more random challenges as you walk around. I guess there's like one pendant that increases the encounter rate and one pendant that reduces it. But yeah, this is a 2-page spread after that introduction, and there's another page and a half as well. I guess one's just formation, but we'll get back to that. Let's have a flick through the text again. If it wasn't abundantly clear by now, Inazuma 11 is a riotous, creative take on the beautiful game that pays less attention to the laws of physics than it does to the rules of being a total badass on the pitch. Have to read that. I can't just say badass, can I? Exuberant, victorious, and silly in equal measures. There has never been a football game quite like it. That just sums up the whole series in one fell swoop, doesn't it? And that's before you begin to scratch the surface of the surrounding RPG in which the football game slots. 30-odd years down the line, it's rare to see a video game invent a new genre, but within Inazuma 11, Professor Layton developers have done just that by combining disparate ideas that are almost never paired and tie them together in a clutch of creative ideas of its own. Yeah, I mean, it is really quite one of a kind. It's not the first sports RPG. The Mario Tennis and Mario Golf Game Boy games are the first ones that I can think of for that, but this has definitely a lot more to it. Like, football's pretty full on. Like, massive credit to Inazuma for being this unique. I think it is pretty clear that it was designed to be a game first rather than being designed to be an anime. I think as a fan, like, I usually see Inazuma referred to as an anime way more than a game, and I'm glad that the anime exists. Really, really glad that the anime exists, but it always has been a game series first and foremost to me, and it's nice to see a review that treats it as such. The story focuses on a talented young goalkeeper with an exceptionally mundane name, Mark Evans. Yeah, I mean, every name is a pun. And then you've got Mark Evans. Even his Japanese name is a protect. It's Endo Mamoru, which means, Mamoru is protect. Endo kind of means like circle. So put them together, it means protect the goal. But here it's just, nope, it's Mark Evans. And he's a pupil at Ryman, and he's the only kid interested in keeping the school's football club going. Likely to get disbanded. As we know, we all know we've seen a million recap episodes on that by now. But Evans is a young man of passion and perseverance, and as the grandson of one of the country's top goalkeepers, has dribbling in his DNA. He even carries his grandfather's weathered notebook around his satchel with him, dipping into it for tips and tactics when he's supposed to be studying. When an exceptionally skilled striker, Axel Blaze, transferred to the school, Evans takes it upon himself to convince the kid to join the club and sets off to gather a team in order to enter the inter-school tournament. Fair enough, that's all just true. So now we're getting a bit more reviewy. It's a game of two halves. It plays out like a soccer-themed Pokemon. I mean, it's not wrong. Whenever I've tried to convince someone that isn't already a fan to play Inazuma, I was just like, it's like Pokemon, but it's football. But you don't have to like football. I didn't like football before I played the game either, etc., etc. Chat to the students, recruit some of the 1,000 odd players. Again, how wild is that the first game had nearly, if not over 1,000 recruitable players? It's beaten Pokemon in one fell swoop there. A cute, wholly engaging story is delivered in Japanese RPG style, with set pieces, cutscenes, and simple side quest missions, with treasure chests dotted around, stamina replenishing drinks, sportswear. The other half of the game is a unique take on soccer, using the stylus to draw around the pitch, which, even in Victory Road of Heroes, they look to be preserving, which is quite nice. There's a whole section on the controls here. Try harder. There's a joke in there somewhere. They can run a one-touch football. There's the formation. Putting Willie at the front of the formation where he belongs. Bye-bye, Axel. This is our guy. No less than 16 different formations you can use, and it only gets further from there. There's a mention of squeaky bum time in an Inazuma 11 review. Sure, why not? Ellie's dad isn't much of a football fan, but luckily she's a bit easier to win over. Yeah, isn't that right, Mark? And although it's about football, this is definitely more of an RPG than a FIFA rival. Yeah, wait until Strikers comes out, which I still haven't played. Okay, a shameful challenge. Unlike most other football games for the DS, matches play out as a strange mix of real-time tactics and RPG-style micro-battles. So this is, as we know, the control scheme and how it works. Fair play to them for explaining it. I won't try and rabble it off all to you. Experience point. Can unlock special moves after time. The aforementioned God Hand, Fire Tornado, and Fire Shot being prime examples of these. Okay, one of these things is not like the other. Obviously, what you meant to say was Fireball Knuckle or Fire Rooster or any of them. If your character has enough points during a match to pull them off, much like technical machines, pick them. It's an ingenious setup, and while there's the odd glitch, in general, matches are fast-paced and exciting. There's exactly the right balance between thoughtful strategy and out-and-out action. And thanks to the story that frames each and every key match, it feels like there's everything to play for. Again, just the appreciation of how much love has gone into this. Whether it's down to the fact that there were no other games this month to review or not, this is like thoroughly explaining everything about Inazuma 11. Like, you don't need to fully explain the control schemes, but do it. Why not? It all contributed to that £20 purchase from Morrisons that I made just a few weeks later. It's not always about the big games, however. When roaming the school grounds, your progress will often be interrupted by an impromptu 4-on-4 special case match. Right, so what do they think of these? Because they are quite annoying, really. And the Go games definitely had the right idea of just optional matches in the overworld instead. So let's get their thoughts. Much like a random battle in an RPG, these confrontations are there to help you level up your characters in between the big fights that bookend each chapter in the story. But to add variety, they usually come with a unique twist, the aim being to, for example, score the first goal or take the ball from the opposing team while they attempt to pass it around you like a game of piggy in the middle. Winning matches earns you prestige points, which are used to train up your players' skills at any of the special training spots dotted around town, or to replenish the team's strength after a few grueling matches. So basically, they don't have an opinion on whether it's good or bad. They just describe that it happened, but reading it positively. Now we've got bios on all of the players. I've not reread these in ages, but we've got Ryman's fiery captain and star goalkeeper, the main character. Despite his foot-long friend, Wraith's speed. Is he known for his speed? I don't think I've ever really used much gym in my life. Broad-shouldered wall side as a one-man defensive wall. Don't go stealing his crunchies. Yep, British review. That's the evidence. One of Mark's oldest friends, Nimble Swift, covers the left side defensive position. So he's the speedy one, but oh well. Diminutive Saunders uses his kung fu expertise to disorientate the opposition. No one would have ever thought to say that about Timmy. Never seen without his woolly hat, babyface Carson is an exceptional midfielder. This is very British of them to refer to everyone by their surnames. Very Premier League. Wonderfully described as the team's mood maker, Ironside is small but indefatigable. Again, who would think to say this? But that's what makes it so good. Mop-top Kincaid is key in delivering the ball to the forwards. He also keeps hairspray companies afloat. I'm sure he'll tell you it's all natural. A nerd who is reluctantly drafted into the team when Axel sits out. Yeah, I guess that's indirectly true. He's got managerial potential. Wow, they're actually pointing that out before he becomes a manager. That's like not even a thing until Inazuma 11 3. Did they mean to predict that? I'm not so sure. Driven on by his desire to outperform Blaze, Dragonfly is a valuable striker. And the inscrutable transfer student is Ryman's star player, even if he is reluctant to commit to the team. With this artwork that never really felt like Axel, he's a bit too happy and smug in this one. So they technically got more than 11 players here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, so that means that Steve got the cut. Oh no! Why'd they have to do my guy Steve? Willie got in, but not Steve. He's here as well. It's not advised to strap small explosives to your shoelaces. It's painful. That's not even a special move. Cheer up a bit, Nelly. You're in a good game. The least you could do is smile. Same for Axel, to be fair. Mark is the main man. He looks like an 80s tennis player, but he's a fine keeper. And you know what? It's completely true. Trying to zoom in on his... There we go. We've all seen it before. But if anything, I wonder if that was the last thing to tip me over the line. Because I thought, yo, this game's like Mario Tennis, but it's football. And then in the review, I saw the word... Tennis? I need it. Knowing me, I probably did. And we've got an onside versus offside section. This is where we get some negatives about the game. First, it says the graphics are good, which is nice because you can swing either way on Inazuma graphics, to be honest. Engaging story filled with memorable characters. And it's the least story-based of the Inazuma games, so again, encouraging. And the transfer system makes building a unique team as simple as a very simple thing. Thanks for that analogy. But the things they don't like, the forced game overs if you fail to win a key match in the storyline are annoying to say the least. And this is Inazuma 11 1, which has a cult right near the start of the game. So that is a fair criticism. If a cult wasn't in the game, then I wouldn't really take an issue with it. But because they made one of the hardest objectives right at the start of the series, yes, that would obviously stand out as an issue. And this has been a problem in the whole series, to be honest. The game's overt directing makes exploration a bit unnecessary, as you always know what to do next. Like, maybe that's something people appreciate. It can be helpful in Go Galaxy when I'm trying to navigate the water planet and stuff like that, but the game never really leaves it in doubt what you're meant to do next. Just follow the arrows and you will get there. Like, the only exception is like Inazuma 11 3 when you're on the Argentinian camp and you need to know to check that manhole to look for the secret guy. That's the only time in the series when you can actually freely explore and figure something out for yourself. So again, I think that's fair. And the slightly fussy menu system can make setting up a new team a slight chore at times, because again, this is the game where you had to go speak to Mr. Veteran to put someone new into your formation of 11 or formation of 16 instead of just swapping them in from the menu. So for Inazuma 1, that's a complaint, and then it's fixed for future games. So we'll read the rest of the review and get to the score. Celia is one of the first to mention in the actual bio. You can use her to scout for players. Visit her in the team's tiny wooden clubhouse, where she'll give you a list of transfers and a clue to where to find them. And when you track them down, you can beat them in a 4v4 skirmish. Slightly convoluted, and with 1,000 players to recruit, it's unlikely you'll want to catch them all. You also can't, because you can have a maximum of 100 players or whatever it is. But again, a mention for Professor Layton. If it makes people buy the game, it makes people buy the game. Nevertheless, the chance to build and train. Again, this is actually kind of saying that Layton is the reward for recruiting all the characters, which isn't true. But, like, again, it works. So build yourself a unique team. Multiplayer battles getting a mention. I forgot about that, to be honest. Yes, you can play this game with other people. A strong debut for what seems destined to be a regular fixture, and indeed it was. It had 5 straight years of yearly releases, and O&M's scores for the games dropped every single time. Well, let's just skip ahead. The first game got an 89, and I think the second game got an 88 or another 89. So they saw that as a really worthy follow-up that they liked just as much, despite not giving as much review word space for it. But then Inazuma 11 3, they'd given up at that point. That got like a 70%. And then Team Ogre Attacks got a literal one-sentence review with a 65% score. Like, by that point, they were sick of the original trilogy having the same gameplay. And I guess when you're a professional reviewer, you have to take stuff like that into account. But it's just like Mystery Dungeon. At the end of the day, the fans don't care. We like Inazuma 11-3 having the same gameplay. It still has some new stuff. The main thing, it's got the best characters and the best setting and the best story. And the gameplay is just kind of at its peak for the original trilogy. In turn, they also reviewed Go Light really positively because the gameplay was different, when in fact the gameplay was a lot worse. So it's fans versus reviewer mentality. Do you want gameplay to change, or do you want it to stay the same? And I guess in Inazuma's case, we wanted to stay the same, but then Chronos Stones and Galaxy made things very fun in a different way. I don't know if they ever got the chance to review Chronos. I don't think they did get to review that game, and certainly not Galaxy, but I'll give Galaxy a score. It's a 93. So, our other star of the show is the story itself, which brims itself with personality and excitement. Evans, despite his boring name, is a strong lead who constantly pushes his side onto victory, inspiring those around him in a way that's easy to get caught up in. Likewise, the rivalries that blossom as the game progresses with teams from other schools add smart interest. Rival schools have particular themes like the ghoulish occult, who use nefarious tactics to win matches, and oh boy, nefarious they are. But to say that this is a review of Inazuma 11-1 that mentions occult and doesn't call them a bad thing, that's doing the game a favour. It could have said that the occult match sucks and it's going to cause half the players of the game to stop playing because it's too hard. But they chose not to. Maybe they just beat it on their first try. But yeah, that's a detail we can be glad to leave out. So during the story matches, play will often be interrupted for a cutscene or a moment of drama. It's not entirely positive how, okay, what do we not like? Aside from the team management playpen, the RPG side of the game is a little straightforward. I mean, that's not really the point for me, but fair. The town itself is small, so you're limited in the number of places. Oh, places. Well, nice of you to try and criticise Inazuma 11, but found a typo. I win the argument. Boom! Let's go! While a giant directional arrow makes it very clear where you have to go next. For players who enjoy exploration, the RPG portion is a little kindergarten. I mean, it is a children's anime, let's be honest, but we don't want to admit that. Still, this is more than made up for by the other elements of the game. The football matches themselves work surprisingly well. The staccato rhythm of stylus dribbling, followed by stat-based challenges, managing to feel kinetic and thoughtful. The compelling storyline drives you on through each game, with the opportunity to build and fine-tune a team, one that's likely unique to you. Isn't it Riku Matsushita? Isn't it Chops Denton? Isn't it everyone else? Bob Job. Makes the game feel deeply personal. A strong proposition for both fans of football and fans of JRPGs. Inazuma 11 is a superb debut for what seems destined to be a Call of Duty-style release schedule, and they were right. Premier Division proposition, football's never felt so tactical. An 89 hits hard. Like, every game that gets a 90 or above in these magazines got like a gold ribbon next to them. And some magazines would just recap basically every game that got 90 and above in future magazines. So 89 is 1 point away, and it would have felt a little biased to give it a 90 just because it's the only good game that released that month. So 89, that really, really convinced me to just go out there and buy it. And I did, and it changed the rest of my life. And indeed, they had to give Dual Pen Sports a 70% to make it seem like there was anything else good this year. Like 19% for Jagged Alliance. What a poor month for video games, with a strong exception of Inazuma 11. That Game & Watch Gallery was a 2-page spread on an eShop release of a Game Boy game. That's how strapped for games they were. But let's go Mark Evans, the tennis captain. He's done it. So, more advertisement for Xenoblade Chronicles. You should play Xenoblade Chronicles, I guess. I don't think there's anything else. Well, there's more Xenoblade. Oh yeah, the O&M Essentials. Like, this is all largely stuff that got at least 90 plus. Inazuma 11 is not in here yet, but it does have Layton twice, and it has Hotel Dusk Room 215, a game that I randomly enjoy a lot. And here's how much someone paid for this magazine. I got this magazine brand new when it came out, but this is not the same copy. I still have my original copy. I have this magazine twice, but the original one is at my mum's. I bought this one separately on eBay so that I could take pictures of it for my Inazuma 11 Iceberg video, because the magazine got a shout out in that video. And now it's gotten me a full 30 minutes of content, so I'm going to call it there. This has been Tale of the Toaster, the story of how I got into Inazuma 11 by revisiting the official Nintendo magazine's review. Really good stuff, and just thank you to this magazine. I think it's quite a shame that kids these days, yes, I've said the boomer word, can't just buy game review magazines in a shop and choose not to buy Pokemon Mystery Dungeon based on that, because with the exception of Mystery Dungeon, I found these really useful in discovering games that I wanted to play. Yes, the internet kind of takes away the need, but these were funny, and it was nice just seeing what games were going to arrive at your doorstep every month. But yes, I'm going now. Thanks for watching.